I'm Raj Kumar with Devex here in Brussels at European Development Days, joined by one of our very first guests this morning, Tom Arnold. I think someone known to many of our members at Devex, the CEO of Concern Worldwide, here from Dublin. And Tom, thank you for joining us this morning and being a part of this great conference.
Thank you.
I thought we might just start by discussing food security. It's one of the big themes today. It's been a big theme for the last few years. As the world faces economic crisis, prices for food have spiked around the world in many cases, and this new demand, this new call for a new way of looking at food security, something Concern Worldwide has worked a lot on in the last few years. So can you give us a sense, what is the state of play in the food security field? Where are we today? What kind of progress has been made? What do you see as the key issues?
I'd say, in a word, precarious is probably the right word. I think food came back on the international agenda in 2008 when we had a major food price hike. We had leading to riots, food riots in over 30 countries. So I think the world has been paying more attention since then, but we're currently reaching another peak in food prices. Today in Rome there is a major meeting of agriculture and development ministers to talk about the food situation. So there is a realization that in the short term, high food prices obviously impact on the poor, and that has to be protected. In the longer term, we're going to have to invest more in producing more food, more better quality food, and making sure that the people who need it have access to it.
Sure, this seems to be one of the flip sides of the strong economic growth in much of the developing world. Another theme here is inclusive growth. And we've seen high GDP growth rates in many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but the question is that translating to the poor? It may lead to higher food prices and people not being able to afford the nutrition they need. And I know you're very involved in something called SUN, scaling up nutrition. I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit what that means and how that ties into this theme of food security.
Well, the scaling up nutrition movement, which has been established now for about 2 years, is really about focusing on the first 1,000 days of a child's life, from pregnancy to 2 years of age of a child, because that's the critical window of opportunity in which nutrition is terribly important. Because if inadequate nutrition at that point, it will lead to stunting, and stunting of brain and stunting of the body, which has long-term consequences. So the world is putting more attention on this, and the SUN sets out, if you like, the principles and the policies that will address this issue. And 30 countries have now agreed to follow and prioritize nutrition. This is a very positive development. I think it's one of the more positive developments in recent years, and there is a lead group appointed by the Secretary General, which I'm on, and we had a meeting in New York about 2 weeks ago, really to try and give added momentum to this. So that I would see as one of the positives in the current situation.
Right, the first 1,000 days, a very cost-effective intervention, right? All the studies show that this is a place to put development money.
Yes, it does. I mean, the Copenhagen Consensus, this group of economists who've been trying to rank the effectiveness of different types of development interventions, have now twice said that nutrition during the first 1,000 days is absolutely the most effective intervention.
One of the things I found fascinating about this movement is the idea that it's called a movement. It's not a new bureaucracy or a new initiative, right? It's sort of bringing together existing development actors and trying to coordinate their activities. When you come to a big conference like this and you see so many aid ministers and so many development programs, that issue of coordination becomes more and more obvious, the need for it. And I wonder sort of how that has gone into the thinking behind developing SUN as a movement.
Well, that's core to it. I mean, the recognition from the beginning that this is not something any one actor can do on its own. So it is about governments, and governments in food deficit countries have a real need to give leadership on this issue and prioritize it and provide a policy framework for it. But then the other actors also have to come into play. The private sector has a critical role to play, the NGOs, but there needs to be adequate coordination at national level in particular. At international level, there's a secretariat in the UN led by Dr. David Nabarro, which I think has done a great job in making sure that people feel included and know what their respective roles are.
I have to take this opportunity to ask you about the state of NGOs. As the CEO of one of the world's largest NGOs, where do you see NGOs going? We had a feature article in Devex talking about some NGOs merging and acquiring others, that some NGOs are getting bigger and more global and others more local and focused. How do you see the dynamics there in the changes in NGOs?
I think there is going to be further change within the NGO sector. There will be some which will get larger, which will seek to find better ways of working together. I think there's a real scope for particularly some of the larger NGOs like Concern, to build links with the business sector, to find new forms of partnership. And then of course critically, I think in developing countries there's new capacities emerging within civil society, and finding ways of working in a mutually beneficial way with them. I think that's one of the other challenges for the future.
If you had to look ahead 10 years, 15 years for Concern, how do you envision these new dynamics might change your own organization?
Well, I think we're probably going to continue doing what we're doing, trying to deepen the quality of the work we do, trying to build strategic relationships around the areas like nutrition that we are focusing on. We have a very effective relationship, for example, with IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute. At the corporate level in this space, we're working with the Kerry Group, a global food company based headquartered in Ireland, and finding ways of collaborating to do something like really impactful research work on how to reduce stunting, which we're doing with Kerry and with IFPRI. I'd see us doing more of that and being able to demonstrate the effectiveness of what we do.
And I've got to ask you as we wrap up, you've had such a distinguished career in public service and a lot of expertise in agriculture and economics. When you come to a conference like this, there's often a focus on what's going wrong, the problems, right? As a leader in NGO, how are you optimistic, and are you optimistic? Are you able to look out at the sea of challenges we face and see things improving? Where are we?
I suppose I'm a naturally glass half full person rather than glass half empty. I think in recent years, notwithstanding the major challenges of food in particular, we're beginning to get the policy framework right at national and international level. I think we need to have more resources into this area to reflect the importance of nutrition and food security, and really press on, recognize this is important, but it is solvable if we can do the right things.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.